Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Time!
Three on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game!
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Float game for the win! Taylor's gone. Goodbye. Touchdown, Indy. Woo! IU. America. They got a football team now.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Now, here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle. Of course, I'm not Jim. I'm the Coach Shannon Griffith with you here today on this beautiful Thursday here in the great state of Indiana. We got a loaded show for you coming up today. Here's what's on tap, as we're going to have Stayley and Alec Lasley from the Hoosier.com, who are at Big Ten Basketball Media Days. We'll get their take on that and all things Big Ten basketball this morning. Dustin Schutte from Sports Illustrated, Purdue Football and Big Ten hoops as well for him, as he's doing a little bit of double duty, as the Gophers will be coming to West Lafayette this weekend to take on the Purdue Boilers, coming off that loss to Illinois this past weekend. We'll talk to Matt Taylor about the Colts. The goodness, the Colts rolled the Raiders this past Sunday. They're on tap to take on the Cardinals this weekend as well. We'll get Matt's take on the Colts and all good things there. And then our special guest at the latter part of the show today, Nolan Harrison, former Indiana Hoosier great D lineman, went on to play for the Raiders, Steelers, and I believe the Redskins back in the day, Commodores as we know it as well. We'll talk a little bit about what he's doing now. He's with the NFL Players Association, been there for a while, but we'll get his take on these Indiana Hoosiers from his perspective. He was one tough customer back in the day, back in those late 80s, early 90s. We're talking a little bit of my era when I was playing at Ball State, but we'll talk to Nolan there later and talk a little bit about all things college football. Week 7 on tap, NFL Week 6, and of course, those Major League Divisional series that were on last night. Good morning to all here joining us in our YouTube chat, as well as those joining us throughout the state of Indiana on many different radio stations, like 1380 The Fan up here in the great Northeast, the Ref down in Evansville, 97.7, and WJOB up in the region. We thank you for joining us here today on a beautiful Thursday morning. And I hope your day is off to a great start, as we are looking for these Hoosiers to head west and take on these Oregon Ducks. A lot of things are being discussed about this game between Indiana and Oregon. If you get into the Twitter verse, there's a lot of back and forth, especially with what we would refer to as experts out there in the great world of the Twitterverse, talking about this game, not giving the Hoosiers much chance, thinking that the 7.5 point spread, which has fluctuated because I believe that was up to as much as 8.5, I'm not mistaken, and it's kind of moved its way down, but not giving the Hoosiers much chance, and really referencing the point spread as being an easy pickings to take the Ducks and lay the money in that regard. Brian says the spread was as much as 14 when it opened. So you can see there where it started and where it's at in that respect. So a lot of things that are happening there with the Hoosiers as they'll head out west. There has been a big debate as we've seen of late as well on this travel aspect for all Big Ten teams, whether it's the schools that are in the Midwest or East Coast heading west and vice versa. And I know USC a couple of weeks ago played Illinois in a game that was on, I believe, Big Noon kickoff, Fox Sports, the 12 o'clock noon game, which would have been 11 there in Illinois. But for those California crew, that would have been like an 8 o'clock kick. And there's some grumbling there, but not to the extent that I think even Penn State may have alluded to their travel woes of heading to the West Coast. And all that being said, I don't get into that mentality or the aspect of dissecting how one travels to away games, whether it's in the Midwest, East Coast, West Coast. I think you have a set schedule and time that you're going to do it. And you really don't want to deviate too much from it because you've got these players and administrative staff and so forth that are on a pretty tight schedule as it is. I've always said that we were kind of like train rats. And if you change one thing by 5 minutes, it kind of throws everything out of whack for whatever reason. But there's so many discussions right now of should the Midwest teams head to the West Coast on a Thursday as opposed to a Friday. I know that Michigan, who takes on USC this weekend in another Big Ten game, will leave on Thursday to head out to California before they take on the Trojans to give them a full day of acclimation to the West Coast and plenty of liquids. As you know, flying on jets can ultimately dehydrate you. And those are both probably 3.5 hour flights for Indiana and Michigan. But they're heading out on Thursday, Nebraska's heading to Maryland in another big matchup this weekend in the Big Ten. They're also leaving on Thursday. And, of course, Coach Signetti altered his schedule, as he said in his Monday presser, just a little bit earlier than they normally would, as he is a individual that does not like sitting in a hotel too long. And that's the thing that when you travel, you're kind of locked into the environment you're in, and hotel settings can be nice, but at the same time, if you're sitting in it all day long waiting for a game to be played, that also can be a negative, especially night games on the road. Those were always the worst, in my opinion, when you played a night game and you're there the day before and you're waiting around all day. You're trying to worry about the kids and making sure they're not getting too much of rest or sleep, because you sure don't want them groggy. You want to make sure that they're up and at them. So there's many debates going on about that right now. And I'm not quite sure which avenue is the best for one to travel down, but I just don't think there is much to that debate on how you travel, when you travel. I think it's about how you handle travel and the mentality of travel and being locked in and making sure the hydration is taking effect. But that takes place, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You're not going to all of a sudden become perfectly hydrated because you left on Thursday and you started, hydrating on Friday. So it's a multitude of things that you have in your program. So we'll see what all happens with that as well. And I don't know if anybody watched some of the Major League Baseball divisional series last night. Of course, the Yankees are now eliminated by the Blue Jays, who pretty much dominated that series. But the Phillies in Los Angeles, the Phillies facing elimination last night. They come up with a huge win. And I don't know if you saw the Schwarberg's home run that he hit, the first one, he had two, but the first one he hit at Dodger Stadium, I believe, was estimated to be a 468-foot shot that landed on the roof of the right field bleachers there at Dodger Stadium. And that thing was crushed. So he got them all started yesterday with that big hit there in LA, followed it up with another home run later to give the Phillies the W last night. And they'll be replaying. I think they pick up the night maybe, or is it Saturday? I'll have to look real quick, but they're in game 4 of that with the Dodgers up 2-1. And the Cubbies won against the Brewers yesterday, win another big game. And the Cubbies finally crack the Brewers pitching and defense and got themselves a W there in Wrigley. And they too have now got the series at 2-1, I believe. And so that is all shaping up, and the Tigers are all tied up in their series 2-2, as if I'm not mistaken, as well. So that is all heating up as well. It's been a couple days of great Major League Baseball that we've got to see here in and around the country, as well as the great college football atmosphere. But hey, we're going to step outside, take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Alec Lasley and Kyler Stayley, who are at the Big Ten Media Days, and get their lowdown of things all right here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemooreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Welcome back here to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. I'm the Coach Shannon Griffith, and trying to bring in our gentleman of the day. Let's see if we can get them all in there. I got to make sure I get this all right here, because there we go. There's all the good. There they go. Three across the board there, fellas. And appreciate you jumping on here with the rookie here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming out of the bullpen today. Jim Coyle. Jim Coyle is on heading out west as we probably speak right now, or at least heading to the airport to jump on that plane to.
He's supposed to be. Hopefully, he made the flight.
Yeah, the great state of Oregon, to get out there to cover the game on Saturday. But the way I understand it, you two are in the Chicagoland area, if I'm not mistaken, enjoying the festivities of Big Ten Media Day, as we are at that point in time of the year where you've got a multitude of sports going on, not just collegiately. You've got NFL, you got the Major League Baseball getting ready to get into the pennant races and College World Series as well. NFL, I may have said that already. There's just a lot of things going on. Start of NHL hockey season, which started the other night. So we've got a bunch of things going on, and you two are up there in Chicago covering the Big Ten Media Days. And let's kind of just jump right into it. You know, and whoever wants to answer, I'll just say this one to Alec here first as we start. But what's your read on this roster of Indiana going into media days? We've had the chance to see the Puerto Rico trip that was a very productive and a worthwhile experience, not just for the players, but even for the fans to get a look at this ball club, as well as their inter-squad scrimmage that they just have. But Alec, what's your take going in to this season on this roster, but also media days?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've had the opportunity to talk to the coaches and the players multiple times already this offseason. So today is kind of more of that kind of glorification of, you know, what the national media and what some of the other kind of national pundits haven't been able to do. So, you know, we already have a good feel of kind of what the vibe is of this program, what the vibe is of the team and the players and the coaches. And, you know, we've talked about it multiple times, right? It's a close-knit group of guys. It's, you know, one that they had to get close relatively quick with, you know, 13 new players and entirely new coaching staff and, you know, no one who had played together before. So the Puerto Rico trip was significant to kind of help, you know, I guess really jumpstart that offseason. And then, you know, it's kind of tailed into where we're at right now in the first little bit of fall practice that got underway 2 weeks ago. So, you know, for today, it's more or less just about, you know, being able to highlight nationally where the program is. Obviously, you have Tucker DeVries and Lamar Wilkerson there from a player standpoint. Two guys who have been around the block in college for obviously quite some time and have obviously been really decorated wherever they've been. I think the biggest thing that a lot of people are going to be excited about is, right, the first full offseason for Tucker DeVries, that he's been healthy in quite some time. That's been highlighted numerous times over the course of the last couple of months. So to really get into the season with him being fully healthy is a storyline in itself after a couple shoulder injuries. But it's just an exciting time to finally be here, kind of, you know, unofficially jumpstart the college basketball season. And then, you know, quickly we turn around and next Friday and then the following week we have 2 exhibitions against Marion and Baylor. So, you know, things are getting here quite quickly, and it's definitely a fun time with everything going on.
Yeah, and the excitement is real in Bloomington. It's kind of been, you know, percolating there for probably since the month of July and August, when things really started to ramp up, and like you referenced the Puerto Rican trip and how that all went. But Coach DeVries and what he's done in the community there in Bloomington, and a lot of things that they had happening here over the last week, and his involvement opening practices to the press. I mean, I didn't know if the world had stopped or what, because that had not really been accomplished under any other coach for that matter. That he's already had 2 open sessions. So he's been very friendly on that one. Kyler, let's head to you, my man. How big of a leap do you think this group of Hoosiers can take this season after last? And again, with this year, this new era of college sports, you've got the portal and what that can do. Because, again, he essentially rebuilt the roster. I mean, he went, in the other words, total free agency in his makeup of this squad. But how big a leap do you think they can take?
Right. So, I mean, the bar's set pretty low, right? I mean, obviously, you make the NCAA tournament. That's a success, I think, in year one for this team. Now, you know, I'm pretty big on this team, like you mentioned. It's a brand new team. It's going to take a while. Now, they've had like the Puerto Rico trip. They've been practicing with each other all summer and everything. And like Alec mentioned, you know, they have the preseason games coming up, you know, versus Marion, versus Baylor and everything. So you'll learn a lot out of this team, especially when they play Baylor and stuff. But I think there's going to be growing pains with this team. I think Indiana fans should expect that. You know, there's going to be games where look like everything's clicking, and then there's obviously going to be games where, you know, some things aren't clicking. Maybe on the defensive end, there's some question marks there. You know, how good defensively they're going to be. I don't think their offense is Shouldn't be any worrisome comments or anything like that with the offense. I think they're going to be a team that's going to play fast like DeVries wants to do. They're going to shoot the ball. They're going to get up a lot of shots, a lot more shots than what you've seen during the Mike Woodson era, what you've seen during the Archie Miller era. But, long term, there's going to be growing pains this season. That's expected. They're not going to be perfect. It may take them, 10 games or so to finally start clicking and gelling and stuff before they get into the Big Ten slate. But regardless, I think this team's going to be tough. I mean, they're going to be competitive. They're going to be fast. It just comes down to the little things, I think. But I still think, once they do put it all together, they could be a tough team to go up against just with the style of play. And then, I expect them to make the NCAA tournament when it's all said and done.
Yeah, Alec, I guess the other question here, and I've seen some of the comments coming through there in the chat room area, but I guess in the recruiting aspect, as that's always an ongoing scenario here. I know that they're wanting some updates, I guess, on a few of them. Allman and Thompson and Taylor, I guess those three, in terms of kind of where Indiana stands with those three in the recruiting battles that are ongoing at this moment.
Yeah, so I mean, those have been the kind of the core three in the 2026 class for the majority of this summer. I would say definitely over the last 45 to 60 days is really when things kind of zeroed in on those trio of players. As of right now, things are probably shifting into landing one out of the three, and that's recruiting is very fluid. And I know, a lot of people probably don't like to hear that term, right? But, things can change on a whim, and things do change in a matter of seconds in the recruiting world. And so we'll start with Latrell Allman, right? A guy who Indiana hosted for a visit all the way back in June. Someone who had been high on Indiana and vice versa. Indiana had been extremely high on ever since May when they extended the offer. Not a lot happened over the course of the summer. He really then decided to ramp up his recruiting process pretty much at the end of August and in the beginning of September. Took multiple visits in a row. He does have one more visit this weekend with Maryland that kind of came out of nowhere. Maryland was always kind of lurking in the background, and from the people that I've talked to, NIL is a significant reason why Maryland has kind of jumped into this race and have landed at least a visit from him this weekend before he does announce on Monday. From an Indiana perspective, a lot of different things are going to have to happen here over the next 72 hours for Indiana to land him. So I wouldn't really prioritize Latrell Allman from an Indiana perspective as things stand right now. Could things change? Absolutely. But from where we're at, Thursday morning, it doesn't seem likely that Indiana is going to win that one. But shifting over to another one in Anthony Thompson, this is one that has gone back and forth between Ohio State and Indiana for quite some time. Michigan was in there, but after they landed Quinn Costello, a four-star kind of hybrid forward last month, things really dipped in Michigan's favor. So Indiana and Ohio State are the two teams that are vying for that commitment, and at the moment it's back and forth, right? This is truly one where Anthony Thompson has not done a lot of media. He's not talked to a lot of people outside of his inner circle. So it's between talking to different people associated with the recruitment, talking to national people as well that have a feel on both sides of the fence here. There seems to be whispers of potential Indiana maybe leading that as we get to this weekend. But again, this is something that really is not set in stone. He's expected probably to make a commitment and an announcement after USA Basketball this weekend. So within the next week is right now where you would probably expect a decision to come. I think Indiana's done good enough in that recruitment to land him. I do. I think they've prioritized him from a skill position standpoint. They've prioritized him from a developmental standpoint, and they've prioritized him from a need standpoint rather than just a want. And Indiana does need a high impact player to come in right away, a one and done type prospect, 6'8" on the wing who can do a lot with the ball. And so I think they've done everything that they need to up to this point to get a commitment. We'll see what happens. But that's where things stand with Anthony Thompson. And then Ethan Taylor, a guy who really was trending in Indiana's favor, even post Indiana visit. There was some talk that potentially he may cancel the rest of his visits. He ended up going on the Kansas visit, ended up going on the Michigan State visit, did cancel the Kentucky visit. But after that Michigan State visit last week, and things really changed and trending towards the Spartans landing Ethan Taylor. And, one thing with, all this obviously is NIL, and Indiana's in a spot where, they are so incredibly, deeply invested in 3-4 guys, right, for the majority of this 2026 class. They've made it known that they don't want to necessarily quote unquote overpay, right? And that's a difficult situation to be in. But when you also have, pretty close to 9 spots that you're probably going to have to fill after this season, you need to make sure that you have enough from a 2026 class perspective that you can focus on. And then also from a transfer portal perspective that you can focus on from an NIL standpoint. So Indiana's not going to stretch their quote unquote budget to land one of these guys. And I think they've done everything the right way up to this point to at least be successful on one of those 3. Doesn't matter which one, right? If you just, zoom out, if you land one top 30 guy, that's a great, great task for really a staff that has not shown anything yet up to this point, right? In this Indiana type environment. So I think that's one thing that you have to really look at. But the other name from a 2026 standpoint, Von Curvella, came up kind of out of nowhere over the last week. Indiana did watch him a few times in the summer. 6'6", 6'7" wing, originally from Wisconsin, transferred out to play his last year of high school in Arizona. But he is going to be visiting on Thursday. That's one that I would keep an eye on from an Indiana standpoint. They did start to prioritize him after things with Latrell Allman seemed to kind of slip away. But that's one where environment from a kind of historic standpoint really sticks out to him. And also, overall skill position-wise, a very, very, very talented shooter. Averaged 2.4 made threes a game on the Nike EYBL circuit this summer. So a guy who can, shoot the ball. And a guy who really would fit in with this specific Indiana system. So if you're focusing on 2 guys right now, I would really prioritize Anthony Thompson and Von Curvella. But again, anything can happen in recruiting, but we'll see what happens over the next week and a half. There's going to be a lot of clarity in the 2026 class.
Yeah, and it's always competitive, as we know, and it's even gotten more competitive with the how the money is, shifted around, and it's a tough deal. I don't even know how you do it, but again, they got smarter people than me running that show. But, I always say you get what you're supposed to get, and you kind of go play with what you have. And I'm sure that Coach DeFries can do that quite well. I think he's a good basketball coach that will mold the team around what they can or can't do, which I think is a huge aspect of how he runs a program. Let's jump back into this Hoosiers basketball team and look at a couple guys that maybe, Kyler, that you think are, should be some guys that could be a potential breakout year for them heading into this season. And there are probably a few here and there, but is anybody off the top of your mind that you kind of say, hey, I'd keep an eye on this cat because I think he's really going to do it? And then Alec, if you want to jump in as well, if you find that you want to add somebody to the mix, please do. But Kyler, how about you, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously with this team, being all brand new, all new guys, anybody could really categorize themselves as being a breakout guy. But if you're looking a little deeper into the roster, I know he gets talked about a lot, but I mean, I'm going to keep waving that Trent Sisley flag. He's a guy that I've just been so impressed with, looking back at the Puerto Rico trip, looking back at what he's done this summer, the open practice that we were at last week. He just looks like he belongs. And it's like, you don't see that out of a lot of freshmen. The biggest thing that he did, and I know it's been talked about a lot, but like biggest thing that he did, for his career and for his projections is going down to Montverde Academy, developing getting stronger, being a better basketball player, stretching out his game a lot more to where he can be a true wing guy. He can also, obviously he's going to play above the rim as well. Super athletic guy. I talked to a few people, and, you can make an argument that he is the most athletic guy on this team. So, I don't think he's going to be a starter, obviously unless an injury happens or anything like that, but he's going to play a big role off the bench. He's going to play a big role. There's going to be some freshman hiccups. That's obviously going to come, with being a freshman and playing at a high major program like Indiana. But I think, you look at his sophomore year and on, I think he's a starter from there on. And this year, he's going to play a big role. There's probably going to be a lot of times where he is going to be in that last group of five, during, down the stretch of a game or something like that. But super versatile player, a guy that can just do a lot on the floor, and he can be a mismatch problems a lot of times. So, I'm pretty high on Trent Sisley. I think he's going to really, really surprise a lot of people that haven't really been following him super closely.
Alec, anybody that from your standpoint, you're looking at to, be a guy that can maybe shoulder some of this burden that they may expect on either defense or offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I think two guys, Reed Bailey and Tatum Conaway. I think those are two guys that don't get talked about enough, right? Because you have Lamar Wilkerson. Everyone knows about his shooting ability. You have Tucker DeVries, right? Obviously Darren DeVries' son, a guy who comes over with Darren DeVries from West Virginia and can do a lot versatility-wise. But I think Reed Bailey and Tatum Conaway are the two guys that I think a lot of people, even around like the Big Ten, probably don't know a lot about, that are going to learn a lot about quite a lot and quite often. And I think Reed Bailey's versatility, his ability to step out on the perimeter, his ability to handle the ball. There's numerous times from Puerto Rico to just this couple open practices to the scrimmage on Friday last week, where he was the main ball handler on the floor. And when you have that from a 6'10" hybrid forward who can make plays, pass, handle the ball, he's rather quick and athletic for what he plays. And he's not a guy who plays above the rim per se in that sense of athleticism, but the way that he can move with the ball at his size, I think is something that really separates him from a forward standpoint. And I think that's going to be critical for this Indiana offense, more specifically than probably the defensive side, in getting Indiana in these sets, being able to grab a rebound and go and play that up-tempo style that this offense wants to play. And then Tatum Conaway, his quickness, I knew he was quick coming in, but his quickness, his ability to get into the middle of defenses, stop around the free throw line, and be able to really dissect an entire defense in a matter of seconds has really stood out. But his ability just to get to the rim, get by opponents from an offensive standpoint, and his defensive kind of pestiness that he likes to play with at the top of the key, I think are two areas that Indiana hasn't had from a point guard in quite some time. It's not so much he plays with always that speed, but he knows how to turn it on. He knows how to adjust the tempo. And I think that's one thing where, he's been around for a long time. He's played numerous years, both at the JUCO level and the Division I level. So he knows the type of skill set needed against multiple different defenses. And he also is just very, very smart in knowing how to adjust the tempo to what they need. And so I think those are two guys that I'm super excited about to continue to see develop, but more importantly, their ability to change things offensively. I don't think Indiana's had that type of duo from a skill set wise, the quickness and ability to get into the middle of the paint, and then the athleticism from a 6'10" forward to handle the ball and make plays out on the perimeter. Indiana hasn't had that duo in a very long time. And then you just add in the shooting ability that you're going to have for multiple guys around the floor. So it's an offensive system that I think is going to be rather appealing to a lot of players in the transfer portal, yes, but also then coming up high school wise to see what they do ball handling wise and versatility wise.
Well, guys, I appreciate you guys coming on here today, and I know that you've got a lot to work on. And if you get over to Hoosier.com, make sure you pick up that subscription to get all the coverage of Big Ten Media Days there in Chicago, as well as the big game this Saturday out in Eugene, Oregon, the Indiana Hoosiers versus the Oregon Ducks. Guys, have a safe and enjoyable day and your safe travels back if you're heading back to Bloomington, or any of you heading out to Oregon.
Nope.
We have Zach and Colin are heading out to Oregon, and we're heading back home after Big Ten Media Day.
All right, fellas. Well, thanks a lot. Appreciate you being on here this today, and we'll look for all that stuff on the Hoosier.com. Hey, we're going to step aside, take another break as we get ready to bring in Dustin Schutte from Sports Illustrated with Purdue information, as well as his Big Ten Media Days experience, all right here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Know a team or group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member. Free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. Boost Fundraising does it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, and community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com and be sure to enter the promo code COYLE, that's COYLE, to receive a discounted fundraiser. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Welcome back here to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Appreciate y'all being here with us today on Thursday. I must say a happy birthday to my father, Mr. Bill Griffith. Big day for him. I believe he's 83 today. So happy birthday, Pops. Hope to see you later. But again, thanks for Kyler and Alec giving us some updates there at the Big Ten Media Days. It's going to be an interesting basketball season again in the Big Ten, as well as for the Indiana Hoosiers, and what we'll see from this first era with Coach DeVries. And I just think there's a ton of similarity for some reason between him and Coach Signetti in a no-nonsense approach to things, and the standard that he wants his players to play to, and not accepting anything less. And I think you're going to see a concentrated, consistent effort each and every ball game, whether they come out victorious or not. If they play to the standard that he wants them to play at, those wins will come. But I just don't think he's going to accept anything other than that full commitment to the standard that he's going to and expect from his team this week or this year, saying. So I know that the Big Ten Network, I believe, is carrying some of that again today. I think the ladies were on yesterday with some good coverage there as well. And I think Indiana is in good hands with Coach DeVries as the basketball coach now there in Bloomington. Just to update some of those scores from yesterday, so I'm not stating anything that was wrong. I did get the series is tied between the Tigers and Mariners. Tigers won yesterday 9-3. As we said earlier, the Cubbies hung on to beat the Brewers 4-3. And there were a couple homers heading out there in Wrigley with the wind blowing out. Blue Jays toppled the Yankees 5-2. Aaron Judge denied again, trying to get to the holy grail of the World Series. But I think he had a pretty good pretty good series there against Toronto. I just don't think the rest of the Yankees bats were going at the expected rate that they had anticipated, but that had a lot to do with the Blue Jays and their pitching as well. We talked about the Phillies and Dodgers. Dodgers lead that series 2-1. 8-2 last night. We talked about Kyle Schwarberg's bomb of a home run, 468 feet, I do believe, into the right field bleachers on top of the roof there at Dodger Stadium. And they finally exploded because the Dodgers have really kept them in check in terms of them establishing their offense. I mean, the Phillies have got a pretty good lineup of hitters. And for whatever reason, the first couple games, they just weren't hitting. And whether or not this ignites them to move further into tying this up, we'll wait and see. But the next games that are on the docket today, the Dodgers and Phillies will play at 6. The Brewers and Cubs will play at, I believe, around 9. And let's see here. Game 5 for the Tigers and Mariners will be tomorrow at 8 p.m. And then if there happens to be a game that the Cubs and the Brewers and Dodgers and Phillies would play, that would be on Saturday. So those are rapidly wrapping up, but pretty good divisional series is there with what's left in Major League Baseball. Sometimes those series get, very one-sided when you think about it in that regard. But again, thanks for joining us here today. I'm the Coach Shannon Griffith, sitting in for the one and only Jim Coyle as he's heading out to Eugene, Oregon. I don't know if anybody's been out to that Oregon area, Portland, Eugene, all out there. It's a beautiful, beautiful scenery out there in the Northwest. And if you haven't had an opportunity to head out there, I would encourage you to do so because it is a very scenic state, as you would say. Saturday looks as if there's going to be the typical Northwest weather, a little overcast, a little rainy for this matchup between the Ducks and Hoosiers. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get going here. We're hoping to get Dustin Schutte on here from Sports Illustrated because the Boilers are back into the fray this weekend against the Gophers, which I think will be a pretty good matchup when you look at it. Minnesota coming off a very huge loss, I guess you could say, against Ohio State, and that was a thorough dominating game by the Buckeyes. Saying the freshman phenom there for Ohio State kind of got turned loose a little bit in the passing game, and he made some throws that that were very, very good long bomb throws that he had on Saturday. You got Jeremiah Smith running around out there, that Cornell Tate, two big time bodies running around, and he was dropping dimes to those two against Minnesota's secondary. So it'll be interesting to see the Boilers and how they match up against the Gophers this Saturday. Got to give Barry Odom, I think, has done a pretty darn good job based upon what he was left and what he had to put together. And while they're not there yet, I think they've been fairly competitive in their first couple games in that regard. So I think that's one thing that you can look for in that ball game, with that. And then some other big games, Illinois and Ohio State. That's an interesting ball game because that is at Illinois. Ohio State, not to say that they play poorly on the road. I just think they're not as good as they are in the shoe. And I don't mean that in a negative context because they're a darn good football team regardless of where they're playing. Number 1 ranked team in the country currently. But I just think when they go on the road, it's better to get them away from the shoe and away from the Buckeyes. And I know Illinois it's going to be a sellout there, but it'll be interesting to see if more Illinois fans occupy the seats there in Illinois this Saturday. As you know, the Buckeye fans will buy up any and all tickets that are not. And we've seen that in the past at Memorial Stadium where Indy and Ohio State has played, and it's been an Ohio State home game for that matter. A couple of questions here I'm seeing pop through. Let's see. Do I think we can beat Oregon Saturday? Honestly, yes. Anybody can beat anybody on a given Saturday, a la UCLA, Penn State. Okay. Indiana will have to play a very, very good ball game, almost perfect in some respects when you look at it. And I do think it's one of those games where Indiana is going to have to capitalize off of any turnovers that Oregon has via fumbles or interceptions. And they just haven't done that this year. So Indiana is going to have to find ways to create those opportunities to get those takeaways. I was looking at the statistic last night of turnovers, and on that is points off of turnovers. And both teams thus far have garnered 31 points off of an opposing team's turnovers, both of them, which is a pretty good stat when you think of it, because when you get a turnover, the effect that it has on an opposing team, that sense, but then you take it and put points on the board, it's even a double whammy in that regard. So they're both tied in that category, and they're very close statistically when you look at it from the black and white. Indiana will have to overcome maybe some of the mismatches that they may perceive to have Oregon. But if they can get some turnovers and answer those with scores and keep a field position battle to where Indiana has a shorter field to drive on any of their possessions and puts Oregon's back to the wall where they're forced to drive consistently, maybe 70, 75 yards in total, I do think that bodes well for Indiana, as well as not giving up the big plays to Oregon, because that is technically how they have become so good offensively, is they got big time home run hitters out there. So again, I like the fact that Indiana goes out there with having a 5-0 record and having beaten Illinois and Iowa, because those two games were critical to have in your back pocket heading to Oregon. And I do believe Indiana plays with a little bit of house money in the sense that they don't have one loss, and looking at this game as a win all be all type of ball game. So I do like their chances out at Oregon. It will be a very difficult task, as I said, and they'll have to play a pretty good, flawless football game and not have some of the mistakes that they have shown on tape, such as alignment issues in the secondary. When you go for it on 4th and 1, you better get it, because if you go for it and do not get it, they are going to capitalize off of that. And again, I just think those are the things that Indiana has to do well on Saturday, because they're going to have to take some chances here and there to gain possessions in this ball game. But is that a impossible feat for them to overcome? I don't think so, if they can get the turnovers and get the field position, because Oregon is a very good football team. So we'll look at that from, kind of from that perspective as well. But again, I do think Indiana has a chance on Saturday. We'll see. Will Penn State make a statement against Northwestern? Well, let's put it this way. Coach Franklin better hope they do, because right now his life in Happy Valley isn't so happy right now after that debacle out at UCLA, getting beat by a team that hadn't won a game and had just fired their coaching staff, including not coaching staff, their head coach, as well as Tino Sunseri, the OC. So they went out there a little bit with their hands behind their back and found a way to get the biggest win of the year at this point against the Penn State and Nittany Lions. And I didn't think they looked very good at all. I mean, I know they end up scoring, I think, 37 some odd points. It looks to me that Drew Allar's frustrated. I don't think he's fully comprehending the offensive structure and what they're trying to do. I broke down their game against Oregon, Penn State's game against Oregon, and they have a lot of junk. And what I mean by that, they have a lot of junk formations where they're trying to trick you into alignment issues and get outflanked. And against a team like Oregon, they eat that stuff up. And they did. They held them to under 300 yards of total offense, even though that game went to overtime. So it wasn't that Penn State played this miraculous game on Saturday against Oregon. They found a way to get it tied up, and then Aller makes the critical mistake in OT, throws the interception. So we'll see what happens there. But I do think Northwestern and Penn State, if they can, they will make that statement in that regard. We'll start talking a little bit more about all of this and more, hoping to get Dustin Schutte in here. And I know that he's out on the road, so it may be a little bit difficult. But if not, we'll get it covered. We'll take a break. We'll be right back right here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Welcome back here to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle. I'm the Coach Shannon Griffith. Thanks for you joining us today on a beautiful Thursday. At least it is up here in the great northeast of Fort Wayne. Big time of the month, as we talked about earlier, all the different things that are happening in and out of the state of Indiana and throughout the country, with the many different sports things that are starting to converge into one big sports outing here. One of my, I guess you could say, my second favorite time of the year. The first being, of course, the start of college football season. But in Indiana right now, we're getting ready to head into the high school football playoffs here in another week. And that drawing, I believe, is this Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. But some good players in and around the state of Indiana. I know Indiana Hoosier is on it. And I get the privilege of broadcasting on Friday nights up here on 1380 The Fan, 100.9 FM. And we are going to have the Carroll Chargers versus the Northrop Bruins this Friday, as a big conference matchup. The Bruins have Jeremiah Guilford, who is going to the Ohio State Buckeyes, big-time receiver there. But there's another young man receiver, Max Whale, I believe it's pronounced, excuse me, wide receiver there that's also got some Power 4 offers, including the Indiana Hoosiers. So those two gentlemen will be on display Friday night as well. And a lot of talented kids up here in this area. There's a freshman phenom at East Noble High School who I sent a little note to Mr. Brian Haynes about, just to alert him that this kid has come on the scene by the name of Austin Phillips, who is a man-child as a true freshman, 6'2", 225 pounds, and he can run. He actually plays linebacker on defense and running back on offense. And saw him a couple weeks ago, and he ran a 93-yard touchdown back on a simple play that he just outran everybody. And as a defensive player that day, he had a strip fumble recovery in the first drive of the game. And this young man has been on visits already to Ohio State, Louisville, and others. So I just wanted Coach Haynes to be aware there's a nice little linebacker standing right up here in Northeast Indiana that you guys ought to look at. And they were fully aware of him, so that won't be a problem with them getting that young man involved in everything as it pertains to them and their recruiting. Big weekend ahead here, especially for the Indianapolis Colts. What a game they had last weekend against the Raiders. That game was totally surprising to me, and what they were able to do against the Raiders, beating them 40-6. And Daniel Jones continues to impress. 20 of 29 on Sunday, 212 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor seems to be coming back into form, as he had 66 yards of total rushing, but he had 3 touchdowns. And it's really been that was a something to see ball game there versus the Raiders. And again, Daniel Jones, that signing now is looking like a huge get for Indianapolis, as he's played very, very well thus far. And Tyler Warren, the kid from Penn State, I think he's going to be a phenomenal pro. And the Colts have got him, and he had a touchdown pass on Sunday. But they gear up for the Cardinals, who are coming to town with a little bit of egg on their face after their performance there in was it Tennessee last week? I think that the Titans got actually a win. And I think it was their second straight last-second loss, if I'm not mistaken, thus far for the Cardinals. As, they lost to the Titans 22-21. And that one again. So the Colts have them coming in on Sunday. We're going to talk to Matt Taylor a little bit later and get his full take on the Colts and everything about them and how they're, weathering the storm of this season thus far, for the most part, healthy in that respect. So that will be a good topic of conversation with Matt. I did see a couple of questions. D'Angelo Ponce will be back this Saturday. That's a huge get back for the Hoosiers. Having the bye week, of course, was a big benefit for not just D'Angelo, but the entire program, as it gave them a chance to allow some bumps and bruises to heal, as well as getting reps to the kids that may have not gotten as many reps as since the season has started, and those that are going to potentially redshirt. It gives them a chance to get out and get better with coaching instead of having to be the group that runs the opposing offense or the opposing defense. So it gives them the appropriate reps and during the week. And then I would imagine they would start to turn their attention towards Oregon on Thursday or Friday last week before heading into the weekend, of course, and picking up a few extra work days on Oregon always helps. But yeah, it was a good time for a bye to happen in the sense that you had 5 games under your belt. You just came off of 2 big games in the Big Ten with Illinois and Iowa, with the Iowa game being a dogfight and a lot of hits in that ball game. And there were some things that they needed to clean up, and they had an opportunity to do that with the time that they got to spend looking over not just that game, their first 5 games of the year, because when you go into these bye weeks, every offense and defense will do their normal self-scout, but they're going to take it from the perspective of what have we put on tape for the first 5 weeks that our opponents are getting, and how do we look at it objectively and see what are the things we need to get cleaned up on offense, defense, and special teams. And we make sure that we're addressing it over the next couple of weeks prior to this game against Oregon. So when you look at that, it's going to be a scenario of getting what you've got on tape, good, bad, and the ugly, cleaned up what that is bad and ugly, and continue to improve upon what is good. Indiana is not a complex offensive system. When you look at them on tape, they do not run a ton of different formations. They don't have every type of play in the playbook, and their passing game is rather tied to the run game in some respects with the RPO system that's been highly effective for them. Because when you look at Indiana and what you do, you don't get impressed by what their sophistication of an offense. You look at their offense and kind of scratch your head and say, these guys are lighting it up, and they are doing it in a very simplistic way, but adding their different elements that keeps the defense from guessing. And they've done that quite well for the last 2 years. So you don't want to theoretically go change everything. You want to take what you're doing well and accentuate it and add to it, putting in wrinkles that the defense has not seen, but also cleaning up the mistakes that you have. And there are some. Indiana's right side of their offensive line has not been all that great when it comes to pass protection. They have given up over 6 pressures thus far on our right side. And that is a concern when you play a team like Oregon. They're going to have, their defensive line is stout. They're quick. And they've got a big time pass rusher in Ugalele, the kid from out there at Oregon. So when your right side of your offensive line has not done well in protection and has given up the most pressures, that is some area that you're going to have to address. Why is it? And how do we help them? Because that cannot continue to happen, because defenses are going to light you up on that side until you prove you've handled it. So again, that's a lot of things that you do during a bye week. And then defensively, of course, you look at what they've done, and they've done quite well against all teams that they've played against. Held Iowa to minuscule numbers in a close ball game, but that was made more so by offense's inability to generate a ton of points. But Indiana's defense has done quite well thus far, getting pressure up front with their front 4. You got about 6-7 guys that are rotating in there. Landino's been real good. And I could go on and on with all this, but you gotta look at it from that perspective, that Indiana defensively has been about where they were a year ago, give or take a few yards on each side of the ledger in that regard. But I think they've been well. I think Isaiah Jones is playing his best football I've seen him play, and he's really shown. I think Hardy's come about here in the last couple of weeks. The secondary, I think, has done quite well. And now that Moore has the injection status in his back rear view mirror, I do think he'll even step it up. And he has played well for the first 5 weeks anyway. It's just another thing that he has to work on or worry about each and every week on whether his eligibility is going to be there or not. That from that standpoint. But again, both schools are working on these things in the off week and heading into this week. In Oregon, of course, Dante Moore, him and Mendoza have very similar statistics. Moore is a big, strong kid, quick delivery like Fernando. Mendoza is getting the ball in and out of his hands thus far in 2.6 seconds. That's how quick the ball is leaving his hands. And that just shows you Indiana's passing game is more centered around quickness than it is pure drop back, push the ball vertically down the field a lot where you have deeper routes. Now, I'd like to see them try some more vertical shots. I do think that's one thing that may be missing in the grand scheme of things, but 2.6 seconds is very tough to do anything as a defense. But Dante Moore is going to be a big threat for Indiana. They're going to have to keep him contained in the pocket because if he gets outside of it, he can take off and run it with the best of them. And he did it against Penn State and quite honestly hurt Penn State in critical situations in that ball game. But they're going to have a pass rush that's disciplined in their lanes and then pick and choose the times they want to go after more in that respect. But you got to be, on guard because they can take their shots down the field as well. And they've got a very good running game to add to it. So when you look at these two offenses, Oregon and Indiana, philosophically, they're pretty similar in the sense that you're not going to see a lot of junk. You're going to see a pretty straightforward approach to offensive football. They're going to have their wrinkles. They're going to run motions and things of that nature, but they're going to come at you with what they do the best. And you better be ready to defend it because if you're not, they'll get you. And if you give up big plays against this team, they'll kill you. I mean, that's the thing. You cannot give up the big play. You got to force them to drive long fields and kick field goals as much as possible in that respect. And, look, it's Indiana has, I think, had more sacks on the year than Oregon has. So that stands out as a good sign in that regard, because I do think Indiana's defensive line has been able to do that pretty regularly thus far without having to do a lot of wholesale blitzing. Hey, and they got the Dylan Thyman kid from Purdue on defense. He's been a big help for their defense. And you're going to have to he's one of those guys that finds his way to the ball quite regularly. He made the big pick in the overtime game against Penn State. That's going to be a key component to their game on Saturday is how do you do some things that shakes up their defense and not gives them free rein just to pin their ears back and get at you. So you got to have that continuity offensively. So we'll talk some more about that here in a little bit, but we're going to step aside here, take another break, and hopefully here shortly we'll have Matt Taylor from the Indianapolis Colts coming on here in a few minutes. But don't step away because we'll have more and lots more right here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizeMoreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on Thursday. Appreciate you joining us here on a beautiful, as I said, October day as we head into the weekend here shortly. Big field weekend of sports going on. I'm a big NHL fan, so that got underway this past last couple nights. There's been a couple games on here and there, so we're fully underway in the NHL season. And, of course, minor hockey league buff here in the Northeast Indiana with the Comets as well, and the Fuel down in Indy. Great rivalry. Enjoy those games as well. This is a thing and time of day that remember that tonight the Hoosier tailgate will be on at 7:30. I invite you to come by. We're going to be talking about these Oregon Ducks. We'll do some film breakdown, talk about the statistical data that's in front of us, things of that nature, and we'll go from there as it pertains to what you all can expect as well. And don't forget, after the game on Saturday, we'll have the post-game show. Jim will hopefully be joining us from Eugene and hopefully get great reception there to do the post-game, which is about 30 minutes right after the game and all the pressers are complete. We'll get that rolling and talk about the game against Oregon. And we hopefully will be doing a pregame show. So stay tuned to all our Twitter feeds. Mine is at Coach Griff 55 or at Hoosier Tailgate. And then, of course, at Jim_Coyle at ISB, I believe is his. And we'll keep you up to date on the potential of a pregame show, similar to the one we did from Iowa City a couple weeks ago. Of course, Jim was drowned out at times with the sheer volume that was heading into the stadium in all that respect. So it's going to be a great night tonight. Come by, join us. We make it for open and have honest discussion as we head into this weekend. And hopefully, if we got some time for questions, we can do that as well and get everything out on the table as it pertains to what the Hoosiers did during the bye week and also this game coming up with that. Let's see, Cuff. Let's see if there are any questions. Little and boom, boom. Let's see. Okay, Monday morning conversation should be really interesting, and I guess I'm trying to piece together the phrasing there in that respect. I'm usually not on Monday with Jim, but that'll be Thursday. But I guess what I'm asking there, Robert, is from what perspective are you thinking there in that regard, from that standpoint? Yeah, that would be interesting. Out in Oregon, they have the duck on the Harley coming into the stadium. Jim Coyle on the bison entering Memorial Stadium, the real bison, not the mascot. That'd be interesting to see. He probably would get bucked. That thing's not. I can only imagine what that thing is like. But I think that one of the things that I think Indiana's done well is with their marketing team, as it pertains to home games and atmosphere and all that. I think they've done a phenomenal job with that. And then how they rolled out the bison coming back, I thought was really well done in all aspects of things, because I think it created and generated excitement for that to occur in that regard. So I think that was cool. Oh, yeah. Well, hey, it is like Robert, we say it is what it is, right? And I appreciate that follow-up there to let me know the thought process there. So appreciate it, my man. But, yeah, there's going to be good and bad to everything. I don't think this game is an end-all, be-all as it pertains to Indiana's desire to reach the college football playoffs, but also to try to win and get to the championship game of the Big Ten. So, these are the type of games that the Indiana Hoosiers – as a football program have to beat. They have to beat an Oregon. They have to beat the likes of Ohio State and Penn State. The brand name teams in the Big Ten. Indiana is going to have to beat one of these teams in order for the goalpost to quit moving every time they do something that people didn't give them much chance to do, like throttling Illinois. And there's always already quotes, like I saw one today that came out of Cleveland up there, a writer for that covers Ohio State. I mean, he quoted that Ryan Day told the Buckeyes to throw out the Indiana-Illinois game because it was an anomaly. It wasn't. And what he didn't preface to say is Indiana did the same thing to Nebraska before Ohio State played them. They throttled Nebraska, and Nebraska went to Ohio State and had a chance to beat them. So I think what he was trying to reference there, not that, Indiana got lucky and pounded Illinois and made excuses for why that loss occurred. I think what he was trying to convey to his team was, do not put much stock into the score, because the last time we did that against Nebraska and thought it was going to be easy sailing, they almost lost a game in the shoe. So this one's on the road, and Illinois just had a big win against USC. So in all that, hey, we're going to bring in our good friend and buddy, Mr. Matt Taylor from the Indianapolis Colts. Let me get you set up here, Matt. Hope you can hear me at first. Can you hear me? How about there now? Can you hear me okay now, Matt?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
All right. Sorry about that.
You can't do that to this old ball coach, because all of a sudden I start pushing buttons that I'm not supposed to be pushing.
I know the feeling. Yeah. Sorry about that.
Not a problem, my man. Appreciate you jumping on here this morning on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Matt Taylor from the Indianapolis Colts. And I tell you, what they did to the Raiders last week, I think caught everybody by surprise, but maybe not those that were within the organization. But that was one big-time beatdown last Sunday against the Raiders and Pete Carroll. And I think the Colts got to feel pretty good about themselves coming out of that ball game.
Oh, I think so too. And I think that's one of the things where If there are any critics left nationally on the Colts, I think what they're doing is they're pointing to, all right, you're 4-1, and the one time you went on the road, you stubbed your toe, and you hurt yourself. But your other big wins on the season are against Miami and Tennessee and Las Vegas, and those three teams are combined 3-12. And while yes, that's true, those aren't just three wins; those are three dominating wins, right? That's what good teams are supposed to do to bad teams, is just kill them. And it's hard to win. The Colts have 3 wins this season by 20 plus points. Do you know how hard that is to do in the NFL? I mean, a big point spread in the National Football League is like 6 points. This isn't like college, right? I mean, a blowout is like more than one score. And so for the Colts to be this dominant against any team in the NFL, let alone 3 times this year so far, is really impressive. They hadn't won 3 games by at least 20 points in the same season since 2021. And to drive the point home further is, the Colts hadn't won by 20 points in 2024. They didn't win by 20 points in any game in 2023 or 2022. And they already have 3 this year in the first 5 games. So offensively, they're just executing off the charts. Defensively, they're getting takeaways and they're being stingy inside the red zone. Special teams is contributing. They had a block punt the other day that set up a touchdown for the offense with great field position. So it sounds cliche, but complimentary football right now is being played at a very high level by the Colts. And it's really refreshing to see this level of high execution coupled with just not making mistakes. Not beating yourself goes a long way, as in the game of football.
Yeah, it sounds like the Colts have a similar problem that the Hoosiers have with the national spotlight and whether or not they're beating qualified teams to be considered in the top 10 of the country. So we understand the goalpost at Indiana from that perspective being moved every once in a while. But again, Daniel Jones, he was 20 of 29 last week, 212 yards, 2 touchdowns. He has really settled into the Shane Steichen offense and looks very, very comfortable in it and running the show. How do you see it from your vantage point up there at the top of the nosebleed sections when you look at Daniel Jones's performance thus far this year?
He's been everything. He's been the biggest difference. I mean, you think about what this offense is doing, and then you also factor in what was already here the last couple of years. It's crazy to think that really not much has changed, but also at the same time, a lot has when you factor in, the level of execution. What I'm getting at is Jonathan Taylor was here last year. Michael Pittman Jr. was here last year. Josh Downs was here last year. Alec Pierce was here last year. Bernard Ryman, Quentin Nelson, Braden Smith. Tanner Bortolini had, 7 starts at center. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is the quarterback. It's Daniel Jones. And I think I said it on your show, and I'll say it again. Not that I'm right about everything, but I was fairly accurate in saying that even with a rocky defense last year, very up and down, that was a playoff team. It was good enough to make the playoffs had they had a little bit more consistent quarterback play. And I think that's probably an unfair statement, but I also think it's the truth, right? I mean, you hate to say it's all about one player, one position, but in the NFL, as we know, it's the most important position in sports, right? So not only are they getting a little bit more consistent quarterback play this year, they're getting way above average quarterback play, maybe one of the best quarterback seasons we've seen so far here in 2025. He's over 200 yards passing in every game, leads the NFL in QBR. He's top 3 in passing. He's top 5 in yards per attempt, which I think is important because he's still pushing the ball down the field while he's also completing high percentage throws. The Colts are also routinely getting their chunk plays, right? Yards after catch and pushing the ball down the field to spread out the defense. Those are so important aspects of any healthy offense. But Daniel Jones and this is going to sound like I'm downplaying his performance so far, but I'm really not trying to at all. But the biggest thing that he's doing, he's just not putting the ball into harm's way. He's not making mistakes. His decision making is just off the charts. His mastery of the offense is off the charts, knowing where to go with the football, interpreting the defense. And again, I'm going to sound like I'm downplaying it, but I mean it totally as a compliment. He is the point guard of this offense. He knows where to go with the football at all times and is letting really good players, elite level skill players on this offense go to work. I mean, the Colts have 6 receivers already on the season over 125 yards. They've got the leading rusher in the NFL in Jonathan Taylor, and that helps too, right? So again, not taking anything away from Daniel Jones, but he just has to come in here and play smart football, and that's exactly who he is, and that's exactly what he's playing, or how he's playing, I should say. And it's really fun to watch. I think people are downplaying his significance so far on the season because he's not Patrick Mahomes and he's not Josh Allen, and you don't see his individual highlights leading, the A block on SportsCenter. But man, I'll tell you what, he is just steady as they come and is delivering the football with a high degree of accuracy. And again, most importantly, he is not putting it in harm's way. The Colts are not punting. They're not turning it over. And they're not giving up sacks. Those 3 things are just so important. And the way they're executing right now at this high of a level with a quarterback that's been here since March, I don't want to, overplay this word. It is astonishing. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's astonishing how much execution they are getting from a guy that's been here only a couple months.
Yeah, and sometimes a change of scenery, change of coordinator, and those that are, handling on a day-to-day basis makes a world of difference in that quarterback play. And look, it doesn't matter whether it's NFL, college, high school, football. Your success usually centers around who's pulling the trigger from underneath the center. And when you have somebody like a Daniel Jones who gets the ball in and out of his hands quick, does make correct decisions with the ball. He may not have the strongest arm of the around the NFL, but he's one of the most accurate throwers in the NFL. That right there is what you look for in a quarterback: decision-making and accuracy. And he's got that going for him this year for, thus far. And hopefully he can continue molding into this offense that Shane Steichen runs. And I think the success that we've seen is indicative of what's to come potentially as we head down the road here in the NFL season. You mentioned Jonathan Taylor. He looked like his old self there on Sunday. I know he only had 66 yards, but he had 3 TDs, but his running, he seems to getting back a little bit to the way he was running the football. And it just seemed to me on Sunday, you saw glimpses of that in his performance.
Absolutely. I mean, the way he's able to make one man miss. I mean, the offensive line is certainly doing their job in the running game. And I think that's what is the biggest difference with Taylor's production this year, is that the offensive line is going to allow him to burst through the hole. But then it's up to Taylor to make a man miss with a jump cut or a spin move or a stiff arm, and then he takes it the rest of the way. You know what I mean? Like, he'll turn a 4-yard pickup into a 15-yard gain because I think he's one of the best backs in the NFL. He's elite. It's Saquon Barkley right now. It's still Derrick Henry, and then I still think it's Jonathan Taylor. Take whatever order of those 3 and put them in. Assemble in whatever order you want, but those are the top 3 backs in the NFL still going at this point. And it's remarkable what he's able to do. And, bigger picture than that, I just think right now, if you're an opposing defensive coordinator and you're playing the Colts, like, what do? You're up at night thinking about, it's almost more beneficial for the Colts. Follow me on this because you might not agree with it, but it's almost beneficial for the Colts that they don't have, a Jamar Chase or a Justin Jefferson. I mean, would you want one of those guys? Yes, absolutely. But think about it. I mean, Michael Pittman Jr. is the Colts' #1 target. You still got Josh Downs who's an absolute menace on 3rd and short. He's the guy they go to on those quick gainers, to move the sticks and get a first down. Tyler Warren it's not even hyperbole. He's one of the best tight ends in the game already. He leads the NFL so far in receiving among all tight ends in the league, not just rookies. And then you've got, Taylor running the football. You got Pierce, who's a deep threat. They're so deep right now. Here comes Ashton Doolin off the bench, with 2 big catches the other day, one for 35 yards to not only, take the load out of the box, but also just widen the defense. So again, if you're a defensive coordinator, how do you play the Colts? Every defensive coordinator's main job going into the game is to try to be game specific and to try to take away the other team's best weapon. Well, who is that for the Colts? Because they have like 5 great weapons. And that's my point on Daniel Jones is that, in New York, he never had anything close to this many weapons on offense, to be this deep at the skill player positions like he does here with the Colts. So change of scenery, yes. Perfect pairing with Shane Steichen, absolutely. Running game with Jonathan Taylor. It is all adding up to be just a high level of execution for the Indianapolis Colts. And just to give you a really, in the weeds stat, but I think it's so good. The NFL put out a stat the other day that through 5 games, when if you were to add up the Colts' number of punts, the number of giveaways they've had, and the number of sacks that they've allowed, right? All 3 of those things, you put those into the category of, negative things on offense, mistakes on offense, like things that lead, self-inflicted errors that lead to those things, right? Punts, giveaways, and sacks allowed, right? So if you were to add up all 3 of those categories so far this year for the Colts, they only add up to 14 total. Again, number of punts, giveaways, and sacks allowed. That is the fewest total in those 3 categories added up through the first 5 games by any team since 1950, right? That's better than the 05 Colts. That's better than the 07 Patriots. That's better than any team that Drew Brees was on when they were humming on offense. I mean, think about it. It's just crazy. And all of a sudden, people think that Shane Steichen's this great coach. All of a sudden, no, it's just that's the difference that a quarterback makes on a great team around him. And I think that's what the Colts are right now, is a really, really good offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matt, before we let you get out of here quickly, I guess the last question for me, and in a viewpoint, I guess you could say, defensively, this defense has been playing really good. And for all the changes that they've, had to make, change a coordinator and things of that nature, getting a few guys here and there, you got to think that this Colts defense is also playing at a high level.
Yeah, they are. And, they've certainly been tested as far as depth at a couple of different positions. Linebacker has been kind of revolving door. Joe Bacci goes on IR this week with an injury. So, they bring in Jermaine Pratt, the former Cincinnati Bengal. He played 6 years under Lou Anarumo within this defense. He was just released by the Raiders this past week. So, he's on his 3rd team in the last, I guess 6 months or so. But, he's going to be a fish in water as it relates to knowing this scheme, and hopefully can perform at a high level. They've used several different linebackers at the will linebacker position next to Zaire Franklin so far this year. Cameron McGrone is no longer here. Joe Bacci, who I mentioned, Austin Ajike, Chad Muma. They've basically just kind of thrown the kitchen sink at that position and haven't been able to find anything that sticks so far next to Zaire. And then in the back end, that is the position. The cornerback group has been the position that has just been hit the hardest with injuries. Kenny Moore II has a chance to come back and play this week. We'll see. Didn't practice yesterday, but you could see him out on the practice field kind of working out on to the side or off to the side on his own. It's really, really important that they get that position kind of ironed out. Xavier Howard retires. They make a trade at the end of the preseason and bring in Mekhi Blackman, who comes over from the Vikings. Chris Lamons was forced into duty to play the nickel spot. They're also relying on Jonathan Edwards, who's an undrafted rookie free agent. Jalen Jones is still dealing with a hamstring. He was a candidate to come off of IR this week, but the Colts said that's not going to happen. He's got at least one more week as he tries to get back on the game field. He's dealt with a nagging hamstring all the way back to the start of training camp, it seems like. So it's been kind of a hodgepodge grouping at that cornerback position all year long. But in saying that, to your point, they've been able to overcome those things. And, they're only giving up about 17 points per game, which is top 5. They're really good at taking the football away. They had 2 interceptions the other day off of Geno Smith. They're pretty good inside the red zone, which is, every defense would strive to be good in that area of the field. So, it's one of those things where the defense is getting by. Just imagine how good it would be if it could play to anything close to full strength in terms of personnel.
Well, buddy, I thank you for joining us here today on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. And Matt, have all the call from this Sunday's game against the Cardinals, which will be another great matchup. Matt, take it easy, my man. Good luck on Sunday.
I appreciate you. Enjoy this great weather.
Absolutely. Matt Taylor from the Indianapolis Colts joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're going to step out, take one break. We'll be back next with a former Indiana great and Raider great, Nolan Harrison, will join us right after we get back here on the Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemooreSells@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Zach Browning here to tell you about an offer you simply can't pass up. If you're looking for the best coverage of Indiana football and basketball, which includes recruiting, weekly chats, podcasts, as well as access to the best national team out there, then look no further than thehoosier.com. The best part, it's just $1 for the first week. Oh, and did I mention that you get a full year of access to The Athletic when you sign up? You can't beat the coverage, and you can't beat the deal. So head over to thehoosier.com today and sign up for just $1. It'll be the best decision you ever made.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, sitting in for Jim as he's on his way to Eugene, Oregon, to cover the Indiana Hoosiers versus the Oregon Ducks, #7 versus #3 this Saturday. You can also catch that on CBS at 3:30 Eastern time here in the good old Midwest. Also tonight, 7:30, Hoosier Tailgate. Come on by as we break it down from A to Z as well. But now it's time to bring in a former Indiana great, as well as a NFL pretty dominant in his early playing careers. I see the 22 sacks up there on the board. Nolan Harrison, how you doing, my man?
Appreciate I'm doing great, Shannon. How are you?
Yeah, great to meet you. You were playing in the days that I was playing at Ball State, so I was there until 89. So that would have probably been what, your sophomore, junior year at Indiana?
It was.
And Bill Mallory, of course, a tremendous amount of respect for him. I coached for 28 years in college ball, and Coach Mallory was, I guess you call it in some respects, an idol to me just because of his Indiana ties and what he did there in Bloomington through his career. was truly amazing at some time. But he had some great players that he had playing. He had you, Anthony Thompson. We can go down the list of guys that played for Coach Mal. And I coached with Kurt Mallory, his son, who's the head coach at Indiana State now.
It's so funny watching him. I mean, first of all, Coach Mal is a legend. Is a legend and should be revered. Obviously, we're hoping that Cignetti is going to eventually eclipse those numbers. But, you know, the foundation that Coach Mal laid for Indiana football and the accomplishments that he was able to accomplish while we were there is just phenomenal. I mean, it's just it's sad when you see, you know, we haven't gotten past some of the hurdles with some of the other teams. I think we're gonna get there this year and next year, but it is a source of pride as well when you see those flashbacks, and it's still us. We're popping bottles, you know, for certain things that current era teams haven't been able to do. So it's I look back on that with a great sense of pride. And Kurt, man, he was young, when we were there. So it's fun watching his kids be great at what their dad was, continue to exude that passion for coaching. No doubt that that's where they were going to go, but it's fun to see.
Well, the whole family is just great people, A to Z. Kurt, I was with Kurt, and like I said, at Ball State, and that was our first big break into Division I football there under Bill Lynch. And good friends with Kurt and the family, Doug, Mike, all of them. They just tremendous people. And then, of course, the Mrs. Mallory was a gem as well. But just like you said, a great family overall. And again, welcoming arms there in Bloomington, and has always been that. But now we're in the Kurt Cignetti era, as you discussed, and don't want to overslide this. Now, you've been working with the NFL Players Association for how many years now? Have you been with them?
15 years.
15 years. So that has been a great career in that regard, because you work in an important department there at the NFLPA. Why don't you kind of just give us a brief synopsis of what you're doing for the NFL Players Association?
Let's say at the 15,000-foot view is we take care of former players' needs when we're done playing a game. So we provide transition, we provide locker room. I manage 37 chapters around the country, you know, going out to where the guys are, educating them about their benefits and resources and opportunities that are out there. Continuing to advocate for, you know, better benefits post-football. A lot of people don't know this, but because how strong our union is, there are guys who played in the 50s that we've been able to get pensions for that are now making more in their pensions than they did when they played. And that's a testament to the consciousness of the current players, because the money that comes to former players, that comes out of the current players' pockets. So they have to be committed to giving back to former players who played before them. And so the relationship is symbiotic. The organization has always prided itself on being in the front in terms of leading for former player benefits and resources and opportunities. We've created the Trust, which is the number one, in my opinion, the number one transition services for 2 or more credited seasons. We've done all that in my 10-year, in my 15-year career. So I have a lot of pride in the things that we've done. We're not done yet, but it's just been a great thing to be able to bring those things for my little fraternity brothers and their families, helping make their lives better every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. Collective bargaining is, of course, a big part of that transition. Probably, I don't think was around when you entered the league at that time, and now it's become something that has really benefited those young guys that are coming in now, as you say, being able to reflect back on what was laid before them, and having a I guess you could say, an appreciation for those things. And you talked about the players from the 50s. The one thing I saw that I would have needed if I got the NFL, but I'm glad I didn't, because I would not have been able to escape your clutches. I saw you hit Marino a couple times, but is, you know, this aftercare for players that are beat up, banged up. I mean, man, I've had 7 surgeries over the last 8 years. I've had 2 discs in my neck. I've had back surgeries. I still need that, and 2 new knees. So I could have used that aspect of things, but that is an important aspect, is that aftercare that these guys get, because a lot of guys leave banged up.
Yeah, it's 100% injury sport. You know, it's something, you know, we have more knowledge about it now, obviously. A lot of people ask me, knowing what you know now, Nolan, and you know, I'm on the advisory board for the Harvard player study, so I know a lot more than I used to, and I would still play the game. It's a passion for me. I love the sport. I love what it's done for my family. I love what it's done for what I've seen it do for other people in terms of we are in demand when we get done playing the game. Playing football itself, the team sport, all the lessons that you can learn from playing a team sport that will nail you with adversity way more than it will reward you with victory. I think it just parallels awesome life lessons. And I think it's, we are in demand in terms of employees, in terms of management, in terms of entrepreneurship, all the things that I believe football, but not volleyball as well too, because it's another great team sport and my daughters played that. I think those team sports are really, really pivotal in helping launch successful adults from people who play when they were younger.
Absolutely. Life lessons is a big part of it as well. And like you said, knowing what I know now, I would still do what I did and coached as well. And letting 18 and 22-year-olds decide my future, as crazy as that sounds, I do it all over again. And I didn't get paid all the big money these boys are getting paid now. So anyway, let's jump into the here and now, Nolan, with this Indiana football team that you've had the opportunity to watch now for a couple years. And, kind of what stands out to you about the Indiana Hoosiers and Coach Signetti's leadership?
Coach Signetti reminds me so much of a throwback in terms of attitude, preparation, and bringing up physically and mentally tough players. And if you're going to be successful at Indiana University in football in the massive conference that the Big Ten is, you have to have a leader that exudes those characteristics, that brings process, that brings accountability. And to me, that's what it seems like Coach Signetti has done. Living out here in Virginia, I had an opportunity to see him build at JMU because a lot of the kids around here, that's where they went to go play. So I watched him build that there, and I was thrilled that Dolan got a chance to bring him in. So I think he is the flashpoint that has allowed a lot of these great players to come over. I think this year's squad is even better than last year's squad, but that's a testament to a lot of players are looking at what they did last year and saying, okay, I could do that there. And it is not a hard sell when you get to Bloomington, Indiana. It is not a hard sell when you walk on Indiana University's campus. So when you have a great coach and you have that campus, to me, this has been a natural thing. So I'm not surprised at it. Last year was I'm not saying I'm not surprised. I was more surprised than I would have been, right? But I'm not surprised at all at what his success is. Having it be so early and so high, it was not expected. But I always tell all my guys, I'm always cautiously optimistic when you get a great coach in there. Mm-hmm. The barrier between talent isn't all that great. That defining line between the Ohio States of the past and Indiana's of the past we were always right there. All we needed was just to get those couple of pieces here and there, and then process, accountability, toughness, speed, relentless, say it, that translates into success. So I'm not surprised that we're as good as we are this year as well. When we got Mendoza out of Cal, I was like, oh my God, this is wow. Okay. And then the other pieces, and then the guys that stayed too, that shows the commitment, that shows the accountability. The league is going to be there, right? But when you have that kind of pride and you want to continue to win for Indiana in the world of NIL, that shows something as well. And that shows the coaches, because the coaches are a big part of your experience at school. Mm-hmm. Siggs he's hard, but he preaches accountability, but guys aren't leaving, right? Well, I'll put it this way. The guys that know how to work aren't leaving. And sure. I think that's how you build a good program. And like I said, not surprised they're as good as they are this year.
Yeah, well, he has a standard that he holds everyone accountable, including himself and the coaching staff as well as the players. So nobody's treated at a different level just because of what you do or what you've done in that regard from 100%. That standpoint. And, defensively speaking, a spot that you're very well accustomed to, I brag on this a little bit because I am proud of it because of Brian Haynes and what he's done as a defensive coordinator in his younger career. I gave him his first start in college football coaching with me at a division, a lower division. And I've just seen him become this DC that is grounded and very well liked, and kids want to play for him. He was that way when he was with me. There's an attractiveness to him and his personality, and you can see it in its translation to what they've seen defensively on the field. They kind of take that image that he had as a player at Ball State, because that's where he played as a linebacker, and now you're seeing that on the field. And I just think that you get a truth, a realism, I guess you see. There's no phoniness, whether it's Coach Signetti, Brian Haynes, Mike Shanahan, the OC. You can go right down the line with those guys. You're getting their true, authentic self when you see them. Looking at this 5-0 start, you saw it last year. This year they had the big game against Illinois, national TV, and just pounded them, a number 9th ranked team. Now everybody wants to move the goalpost and say, well, they weren't that good, really. We shouldn't have them that high, but irregardless. But this team's heading to Oregon, and you're talking about these Ohio State teams and those teams that you were just speaking of, and Oregon being one of those. Kind of what is your evaluation of this start, and what do you think about this ball game Saturday at Oregon, and from your perspective, 30,000 feet?
Well, let's take it back to the Illinois game. So, and I'm a Chicago kid, so all of my friends are big U of I fans, and yes, it is U of I for people who don't remember. It's still U of I to me. So, but that's ridiculous. But it's endemic of the Kirk Herbstreits of the world and some of the other broadcasters out there who do not want to give Indiana its flowers, who do not want to acknowledge that this is a true turnaround. We whooped Illinois' butts, and they were whether they're 8, 9, 12, we beat a top 15 team, right? It's just give it that if you want to move it a little bit, we beat the wheels off of a top 12 team. So you that doesn't happen if you're not good. So let's put that aside. That was awesome. What I think was the biggest test, in my opinion, was Iowa, because everyone knows how great that team is coached, how hard it is to win at Iowa, and we walked in there in a slugfest, knock it out, my kind of football. I absolutely loved that. And then in the end, coaching, talent, and grit paid off, and we made the plays when we need to make them, and we got the victory. So, looking at that from my perspective, that was a harder game for me. I'm not afraid of going to Oregon to play, and not with Sig coaching them. They were like, oh, it's the West Coast, and they're going to play an earlier time, and yeah, no, that's another of the archaic past. Traveling from one coast to the other, whatever, traveling from the Midwest to the West Coast, that's not a thing. That's just not a thing. When you're a strong foundation, you have strong coaching, and you have kids that are accountable. I think we're going to go up there. We have a history of winning up there. Yes, it's the last time we were up there, we won. So yeah, we have a history of winning up there. I think. Yeah, so it's not like you can't throw up. I don't know if Sig will throw up the old film. It's like, yeah, guess what? We've done it before. So it's not a thing. But I don't think the kids are as enamored. The young men are as enamored right now. Ooh, it's Oregon. I think they're hyped. I think we win this game. I think it'll be close, but I think we win this game. And I don't think that, the whole, they're ranked higher, whatever, it's Oregon or whatever. No, I think this team they're going to win this game. They're going to play extremely well. Mendoza's going to keep his Heisman march, and we're going to continue to sing the praises. But people are still going to dilute it. They're still going to undervalue it. They're going to say Oregon played down, or they got, they were overlooking Indiana for whoever's next. I don't know who the hell is on their schedule. We won't get the flowers. We deserve it, but we'll continue marching all the way through.
Yeah, and it's going to be a tough ball game, no question about it. And that's what you expect when you're at the top. You don't look. You want these ball games, and as a player, you want to play in these ball games. And that's the one thing that I think has been, like you said, because of the foundation that Sig has laid, these kids look at it as just another opportunity. They don't look at it from the perspective as, hey, we're going to have a chance to beat the number 2 team in the country, blah, 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 because he doesn't let the noise get to them. That's the one thing that I think he's done a tremendous job of, is making sure the noise stays outside the building and not, permeate through the locker room about what is or what is not being said about this game or Indiana and college football playoffs. He's got them focused in that mindset, as every good coach has in that regard. You know, they're going to Eugene, tough environment to play. You've played in some tough environments as in your days, whether it be at Indiana or in the NFL. What would be that one thing you would tell them against this Oregon ball club and playing in Eugene? What would be that one thing that you would say to them about handling the pressure of the moment?
Well, I would always say this, because we were always the underdog. Even when we were good, same thing. People would not acknowledge when Mal had us ranked in the top 25, when we were playing for the Rose Bowl, when we beat Michigan at Indiana, when we beat Ohio State at Ohio State, they still didn't want to value us. And then we lost to Michigan State, but we were a Rose Bowl contending team. How we always felt of it was, we're supposed to be here. Mm-hmm. Let all the naysayers say what they're going to say. That was we had to read it in the paper, and that wasn't as advanced as sports media as it is today. But let all the naysayers say what they're going to say. What I would do is I would walk out on the field and acknowledge my first time in a horseshoe. Acknowledge, this is it. This is an historic site. Lots of things have happened here, but I'm going to make my mark, and it's going to start from the first snap. I'm not scared of any of these people. And I'm going to show out, and people are going to know my name by the end of this game. And if you have that mentality, plus the accountability, the coaching, and all that stuff, a tough environment gets muted. It's still going to be there. Playing at Michigan for the first time, not going to say that 105,000 people was like, oh my God, this is a lot of folks, right? Mm-hmm. But they've also been in the Big Ten, so they've seen that already. So going out to Oregon's not that big of a deal. I approach it as, I'm going to make a name for myself. I'm going to beat the man in front of me. I'm going to do my job, and we're going to win.
Yeah, and again, I think that's the approach that even Sig has taken with him. He took that same approach last year when they went to UCLA, and many gave them a chance. And you know what? Against the Bruins that last year, and because it was in the Rose Bowl and all this, Sig said, so what? It's an old stadium. We've all seen him before. We'll play him in the parking lot if we have to. I mean, that's his mentality, and that as well has permeated within the players itself and everything that goes with it. But again, I want to thank you for jumping on here today, Nolan. Had a chance to talk to you. I'd love to talk to you more, but we're up against the end of the show, so to speak. And I know Jim wanted to be here, but unfortunately, he's on a plane heading to Oregon. So I got the great honor to sit and chat with you. And I know you're doing so much great work with the NFL Players Association. We could have talked about NIL and everything else and how that's changed everything. But again, I appreciate you stopping in and joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
Appreciate you having me, Shannon. And for all my guys out there, let's go. Hoosiers!
There you go. One last time from Mr. Nolan Harrison. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate you being here with us today. Hey, we're going to step away real quick. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up for this edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
If you're looking for a new home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from Brick and Ivy Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl at CherylSizemore@gmail.com or 317-701-0838. That's 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore sell or find your new home today. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com.
Huddle up, football fans. Tailgate season is here, and nobody gets you ready for game day like Academy Sports and Outdoors. Swing by your local Academy store or shop online at academy.com to find everything you need, from grills to jerseys and more. Be a watch party legend with gear from top brands like Nike and Under Armour, all at unbeatable prices every day. With 8 Academy stores across Indiana, including our Bloomington location, fun can't lose, and neither can you. Gear up today at Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. I want to thank every one of you for joining me here today on this beautiful Thursday, October the 9th. And make sure you tune in tonight to the Hoosier Tailgate, 7:30. You can find the link and all that on my X account at Hoosier Tailgate. You can watch it there or jump over to the Hoosier.com's YouTube page. We'll talk about the Oregon Ducks as we did, but I want to thank Kyler, Stayley, Alec Lasley, and Matt Taylor, and of course, Indiana great Nolan Harrison for joining us here today. Jim will be back with you tomorrow live from Eugene, but for now, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. This has been the Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle. Good day, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.